morning, Bert.
How you doing? Right on time.
That's what I try and do most of the time anyway.
Here we go.
Okay, go ahead, shoot, do it.
I had an experience that I don't know. It happened in the Baltimore many years ago. I converted the 8-10 split. In 1962, I was the All-American second team. The sports writers here in New York thought of me in that way, that I was the only one in New York that I can remember that ever had that experience. And of course, the Newsday paper in Long Island always had the tournament out in Huntington. And I made that show 3 times. And of course, I set the record for the All-Star Championship in the 8-game finals. And I started out with a 169 game, and then I ran the board. I don't know. It looked like apparently the guy set the house for me. The way I felt, it was the last 4 frames in that 169 game that gave me this clue. And from there, I just ran the gamut. In 1962, I was the Brooklyn Match Game champion, and I bowled Billy Bacone for the title. And I felt bad that I had to beat him, but we were fairly close friends. In 1963, I was the Manhattan champion. And of course, the most accolade that I could give myself as in all fairness is I had the high average in New York for 8 years straight. At the age of 64, a sanctioned 300 in country lanes. That goes back a ways. I have 9 300s, and the second time I shot a 300 in a league was the doubles just before Rainbow closed, and I didn't realize that my dear buddy who owned the place didn't sanction the league, so I lost the ring, which of course I can never recover. I have a doubles title in New Jersey, the ABCs, and here's a story that I like to publish. Joe Brown was a very, very opinionated guy. I always had competition with him, and he always tried to outdo me. And when we bowled the ABC doubles, he didn't want to bowl with me, and I said, Joe, bowl with me and we'll win it hands down. So they gave me a young man, and he opened up and shot a nice score of 638, and I shot 712, and we won the doubles. And I was thinking of Joe Brown after it was all over. Way back in Queens, we had a 32-man PBA summer event at Triangle Bowl. I now remember the place because I looked at the trophies. And I had the high average at 212, and I won the league. And the most experience, and Joe will always say this, my good friend Joe Santini, he challenged me to a match after we won the league over there at Cropsey Avenue. And the funny part about it is I was just sitting at the bar having a cup of coffee and just relaxing a little bit. And he kept nudging me and nudging me and nudging me to a point, Bergie, Bergie, Bergie. So, for 100 hours, we had to shoot a 2-game match. And here's the story. John Hagen, that's Ralph's father, was sitting on the settee watching the match, and at the end of the first game, he whispered in my ear, you see the high board over there? I shot the only 300, and I've got the trophy for it, and Joe quit after the 7th frame to allow me to throw the 300. There was no ring, of course, because it wasn't a sanctioned thing. Seaview is a house that made money for me me when we did the what do you call it, the proprietors tournament out Long Island, where you had the singles and the doubles. It was 18 weeks of doubles and 18 weeks of singles. We started with the doubles, and the high 18 went into the singles, of which I was leading the parade with a 199 average, which is very tough because we never hit the same house twice. It was one of those things. And of course, I came in second in both the singles and the doubles. And by the way, we mentioned about being good friends. Mike Chucholo, Tony Sperando, Lemon, of course, Tita, Semez, just to mention a few. And of course, the proprietor of the bowling alley over in New Jersey in Paramus, Esposito, was a good friend. I bowled on the black team in the Bowlmore for a number of years, and we had a pretty decent team. But the team that I had with the Al Runes in Brooklyn was really the team that I really enjoyed more because they were very close to me. When I was in Rainbow in the afternoon, because I was working for Allstate, so I was had afternoons off to complete my work. I would go in and practice down on 9 and 10 and 11 and 12. And you remember George Stillman, the little brash kid who just loved to challenge everybody because he was an upcoming young good bowler. And he kept prodding me, so I had to take care of business. So I slipped that 100 in my pocket. And that was really, I felt bad that I had to do that. But the kid should have understood. I'm practicing on a pair, on two pair. I should know where everything is. Well, that's a little bit of the highlights. Now, in the Metropolitan League, I got the silver tray in 68-69 for a 197 average, which was very tough in the Bowlmore. Bowlmore was a tough house. I have 250 trophies from Parkway Lanes and a load of other trophies. About 22 250 trophies. I took one out of every house. You know, it was something, I don't know, you didn't think of it in those years. Then, of course, Farragut Pool in Brooklyn had the first lanes that had the automatics. Harold Lanes was another 250. And we were the league champs in Farragut Pool at 55 and 56. There was the United States, or I should say the USBL. That was the Swedish American Bowling League. And I had the high average in that house with a 190, which is amazing. When I started out, and oh yes, there's a story I should tell about my origin. My wife and I were in some discussion in the house at the time, and I was watching the bowling on television in its early stages out of Chicago, whispering Joe Wilson. And we had a little bit of a heated discussion. So I said, I think I'm going to go out. So I picked up a bowling ball, and I went off to college, and I joined the team. And from there, and I only averaged 169 with the team because they were a low-average team, and of course, it wasn't infectious. But when I got into the pot games, something happened to me. The better bowlers were bowling for money, and it started to get infectious with me. That was just a little bit of a highlight. The USBL, I took the high series with a 699. And going back now, 59-60, Neptune All-Star Classic. I had the high average of 206, the high series of 746, trophy for a high series, and I did shoot a 300, but it wasn't sanctioned. Woodbury Lanes, I was in open play. I shot a 300. I have 9 of them that I can remember. My original start in Long Island was with C&J Classic League, where I took the high series. I think I shot a little over 700. Glenwood Bowl at 250. Oh yeah, you mentioned a while back about Kuskies. We bowled there. We won the doubles. I forgot who my partner was. He was a heck of a bowler. I thought it was Mike Chuchalov, but I'm not sure. Then, of course, the heart of my life, the American Bowling Congress 300 ABC ring that I got back on September 16th, 1992, at the age of 64. That was me. Then, of course, we always had a load of heavy bowling. This was the Northeastern Council of the ABC Association Singles. I was the 64 champion, and those lanes were so tough, I shot a 593 and won that series. Triangle lanes in 1961, I mentioned we had 32 bowlers in there, and I was the champ. I got lucky. Staten Island was when I got that 300. Now, going backwards somewhat, the blue commercial, after I got done with Triangle, the guy says, hey, you're doing so well here in the pot games. Come on and join us over in Glenwood, and you'll have a good time. So I wound up bowling Monday, Tuesdays, and Fridays with, of course, permission from my wife, who I love very dearly. And I had the high average there of 196. In 1963, I had the doubles high average of 201. Then, of course, I shot the high series in the Swedish American League with a 710. I was 58-59. 57-58, same league, I shot a 708 high series. And, of course, in the Classic, I was first place. Glenwood, I had the high game, 223, and that was tough. That house was loaded with oil. In the Farragut Pool at 57-58, I had a 189 average, which was high. And then again, we had that Classic League downtown in Ripley. The Ripley closed Major League in 68-69. And I want to tell you something. They had a robbery, and I just came to mind that during the league, they had a robbery. Somebody put their hands in the register and took off with the money. How do you like that part? You with me?
Oh, I'm here. I'm listening.
And of course, we had a lot of fun going across the street to a dark parking lot. We used to walk 3s and 4s. And then, of course, in 68-69, I took the high average of 203 from the Ripley Classic. We're still going. Bay Ridge, another 250. C&J, my first 250 that I ever bowled. In 1976, the Rheingold Brewery Sports Reporter Tournament, I was the all-events champion. Triangle, 250. Seaview, oh, of course, 250. Elizabeth Lanes, 250. 77, 78. And, of course, I mentioned the Newsday as a finalist. And then, of course, when I first started, I used to pitch softball. We played semi-pro, and there was a rainout, and they were the ones that introduced me to the game altogether. The first game I ever bowled in my life, I bowled 114. And I want to tell you something. It was something to see pinboys picking up the pins and almost getting very 300, 278. It wasn't sanctioned, or I would have, but they did set it as a world's record. And I had 27 in a row, and I broke to the 10 pin. Farragut pool at 250. I was the men's open champion in Brooklyn. I told you that was in 1962 in Gil Hodges. In 1975, BPAA U.S. Open qualifying champion. I shot the 8-game record with that 169. I went nuts. I just ran the field. And the story, for anybody to really know how the kind of person that I was, I caught the champ, and I was ahead of him 50 pins, and I said to him before we start the last game, all we're going for right now is the trophy because the money is even. You either win the trophy and the money, or you just get the money as second place. And that's how it happened. I got the trophy. In New York Bowling Association Metropolitan Tournament, I took the first place net with a 740, and then I took third place gross with the, well, of course, with the 740. It was a handicap and scratch. Larchmont Bowl. Open. I had an open 300. And the stories, which of course, I don't know whether many people realize it, but the proprietor, we had a almost all PBA summer doubles. And he used to send after me everybody that he could think of to bowl. And we bowled on a pair like I think it was 11 and 12. And John Engen had come back from Cleveland from the TV show. He was the last one I bowled, and unfortunately, I beat him badly. And of course, there were so many, I can't even remember the names, but one of them was Cliff Bergman. The week before I bowled John, he took me on, and I kept ringing the register. It was just one of those things. The proprietor was after me for what? I don't know. I had no idea. But all I did was take care of business, and I put that money to work. My kids needed things, and that's where my thoughts were. In Glenwood, in 1958, I took the high average in 196. Elizabeth Lanes, now I was advancing. Now it's the 275 club. That was action. I was in action. Woodbury Lanes at 250 in action. And by the way, in Woodbury Lanes, they sent the guys after me again. Only what's his name? Oh, gee. Oh, my Lord. The lefty.
Johnny Myers? Johnny Myers?
Johnny Myers went after me one night. It was a set. My team, of course, unbeknownst to me, had set the thing up to see how good Johnny would go against me. And of course, I took care of business. And I beat him because he beat me bringing in my house once. And that was it. So we evened the score with each other. He hit me on an off night. And I had off nights. Hey, I'm not going to say that I was championship caliber every time I got out the bowl. There were a lot of off nights. Because the ocean is flowing up and down at all times. And of course, I took care of business. There was a house in Brooklyn down near the water called Twin Bowl. And we had a little sweeper going on, and I happened to get lucky and shot a 250. So another trophy. Interstate Majors. That was called Interstate Majors in Campi Tassio. 5 of us were brought up there to anchor teams when part about it was they built the house, but they forgot to dry out the undercarriage of the, so it took a while for the boards to get settled. So you had some high boards in there. But I took the high series. In 1965, 66, Ed DiBenedetto Classic, I was the doubles high game. And of course, my first PBA tournament was in Shreveport, Louisiana, and I took home a towel for a senior championship as a trophy. That was about it for that. It was tough. I didn't make the finals. I bowled well enough, but the atmosphere in August, I don't want you to ever live against it. When I tried to walk out of the motel to go down to practice, I hit a firewall. It was so hot. Fortunately, I had a new car with air conditioning. And of course, there was a game shot. It wasn't sanctioned, but Brunswick gave me a trophy for a 300 that I shot. I forgot where the house was. Let's see. Oh yeah, the Ron Dick double. Simonelli set up. Ron Dick, of course, passed away. He was one of our very close friends, and he was a good bowler, and unfortunately passed away at a very young age. They named the league after him, and I shot a 300. But of course, right after that, they closed the house, and I never got the ring for that one. Mark Ross, when Mark took over Rainbow, I was we hit the second place 800 scratch league. Maple 275, Maple 250, Maple 275. And of course, there's an oddity that no one will ever have again. Seagram's Bowler of the Month. I got that twice. Belrose Lanes was a hotbed for bowling. And in there, I had the privilege of bowling with my son. And my son, believe it or not, was a good bowler. He was averaging 198 when I was averaging 203. And I thought that maybe he would join me in a PBA and we'd be the first father and son bunch. But unfortunately, he had other things on his mind about college and stuff. And of course, Dick Weber was his kid, which of course we all know about. So that would take care of that. Elmhurst Lane's at 250. Station Plaza Bowl. There's a house, boy, it was tough as heck. 250. Triangle, of course, I had a 250. These dates, there were no dates for these. The houses were very generous when it comes to shooting, and they always did something to help us. But here's a hotbed of bowling. Way back when, we had an all-star league on Saturday night at 6:30 in the evening, Park Circle Lanes. I took second place with a 204. Maple Lanes. I did a lot of bowling there. Santini and I partnered up. After I shot the 300, I still took him as a partner. I love the guy. What the heck can I say? We took third place. And of course, I mentioned the fact that I was an USA finalist for 3 times. Woodbury Lanes, 250. Farragut Pool, 250. Plaza Bowling Center, 250. Metropolitan Majors, that was the house in 1963 and 64. Al Roon's Health Club. We were the winners. Cy Freelander, Alex Corza, Jimmy Iorio, Nat Josephs, and of course I was the captain. And I want to tell you something. A closer bunch of bowlers could have been any closer than we were. And Al Runes always invited us for freebies. Anytime we wanted to come to the club in Brooklyn, it was on them. They never took any money from us because of what we did for them. And then, of course, I shot the only 300 in Parkway Lanes against my double spot at Santini. Connie Mac Baldwin, the classic. I took second place with a 204 average. There was another league. I took second place in Farragut Pool. That's going back into the 50s. Glenwood, the 390 bowlers, but doubles. In 1964, I took first place. In Triangle, I told you we had to do the old PBA bunch, and that there, in 1964, I did it all. You've now got a complete condition of me. There was a lot more going on, but of course, it was open play. It was what I told you about the Bronx when we went up there and up to Gun Post and all the other areas. But Seaview was the big place. And I'll tell you, the story that, of course, I told my wife was traveling with me, and I said, honey, watch what happens when I go through the door. You're going to see something. And lo and behold, here comes a guy and approaches me, and he says, are you Bert Goodman? I says, yes. He says, are you interested in bowling doubles? I says, why not? And there was sitting Vinny Pantuso and Gillette. Santini was nowhere to be found. He was apparently bowling in downtown Brooklyn, where he was more comfortable. I don't think he could have hit the house as well as we did. You needed a good shot in there, and it had to be firm and solid. Joe wasn't what we would call fast, but he was accurate. He was good. There was no doubt about it in my mind. And I said to him, how much money you got? He says, oh, around $7,000 to $9,000. I said, why don't you just give me $5 and go home? I says, you'll save yourself 4 or 5 hours of headache. Well, behold, we took it all. And we sent him home packing. But that wasn't the only time. There were many other times that you can't recall. I was always busy on the weekends. And then, of course, we had the sweepers in Philadelphia. I don't know whether you remember Sylvia Ween. She was Philadelphia's queen. She used to bowl against the men in the upstairs-downstairs tournament. And then, of course, we used to go out to Fairless Hills to some of the other tournaments and whatnot. And those were things where we cashed in, we made money. And we went around up to Connecticut. And, of course, I just can't remember it. I wound up being invited to Barcraft's company up in Connecticut because I was that well that they knew of me. They wanted me to do some exhibitions for them. And, of course, there were a load of Dodgers that built bowling alleys, and these guys knew me through Sid Gordon, and they wanted me up there, so I did some exhibitions up there. Of course, I got compensated for it, traveling and some money, and then, of course, Dick Weber was a close friend, and they got me on the AMF Teachers Committee to do some exhibitions, and, of course, I don't remember whether I think I mentioned the fact that Sid Gordon and I were very close, and that I did an exhibition for him at his request, and that was it. If you hear any knocking behind me, somebody's building on the other side of my house, on the other side of the apartment.
Okay.
You can hear it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
All right.
That's it for me.
Okay.
Unless now you want to ask me some questions, which I'll be very happy and appreciative to answer.
Well, we had covered so many different things already, but let me ask you one thing. Did you ever bowl at one of my favorite old lanes, Dave Old on Flatbush and N?
No. Oh, yes. I saw Lillian Ladderwick bowl an exhibition in there.
Yeah. I really liked that house. It had a nice feel. You walked in street level. It had the snack counter over on, I think, the left side. Uh, but it was always a nice, clean house.
Yeah, it was a small house.
Right.
You had to walk down to get to the lane.
Right.
So I
Right.
do remember it.
Yeah.
Marion Ladowicz happened to be there, and I just was in utter awe of her because I had seen her on the Chicago series.
All right. What's
And, of course, there were a lot of other women bowlers that were also very good.
right?
Like I mentioned, Sylvia Ween.
Mm-hmm.
But there were others. In fact, the Baltimore, we had the men and the women's on Wednesday night.
Right.
The women bowled on 5 pair, and we bowled on the remaining pairs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really good. It was very healthy because we had quite a bit of people used to come up and watch us.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that was it. Yes.
Okay. Well, it was very good. Wrapping it up. We got a lot in over the last few weeks, and I got to run out now anyway. I have an appointment, and I'll get this up in a few days, hopefully. And it was great talking to you, and it was great hearing all the stories.
Hey, listen, if there's anything that comes to mind that can come back to me, or after I'm hoping that he'll call me when he comes into New York, because he said he promised to do so.
Right.
So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I do want to end this conversation by saying I am extremely appreciative, and I got to thank my son-in-law in Florida, and of course the family is appreciative of you waking me up to what I had done, and this kind of puts a little bit of a better feeling on my behalf as far as the hall is concerned.
Right. Well, that's good. I'm glad.
Because you made me very happy in a more elderly age, but it's good and it's healthy and it's nice to be able to recall a lot of that I did.
Well,
I want
absolutely.
to really thank you very much, Cliff.
Well, it made me happy to do it, and I'm glad you appreciate it. I'm glad you're enjoying it. And now you have a permanent record up on the website of all your stories for yourself to listen to again, and for you to let in any of your friends in on.
Yeah, well, and everybody can listen to it. It was all done with the utmost honesty. There's no falsehoods here. Everything is reality as it was.
Right. Very good.
Thank you, my friend.
Okay.
I appreciate it very much, with a little bit of a tear in my eye.
That's it. Okay. It was a pleasure, and you have a good day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Right on. Take it easy now.